So then he says, about Ikhlaas, and this is a line that goes above it, about Ikhlaas or loyalty. So now he says, we go back, TAFSEERU 101 is what we're going to do. We're going to break each surah down for every one of you from whence it came, right? Whence it came, its length, its name, its placement, and it's what it claims. So let's look and see if we can find that. About Ikhlaas, that's the name, or loyalty. So in Arabic, it is Ikhlaas, right? And in English, it is loyalty. About Ikhlaas or loyalty, all 4 ayah. Has 4 ayah. So what's the length of it? It's 4 ayah. Sign off with D. What is it talking about? Sign off with D. Recite Surah Al-Ikhlaas. Shaitan Rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ahad. Samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Each end of the ayah ends with the sound what? The del sound or the D sound in English. Right? We call this the qalqala. Whenever you practice tajweed, they give you this surah to practice that qalqala or that bouncing sound at the end of the surah. Allahu ahad. So every one of the ayah, all 4 ayahs sign off with D. It's just familiarizing yourself with the surah. 1/3 Quran. Okay, so it claims to be 1/3 of the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ, actually a man came to the Prophet ﷺ after watching another man reciting the Quran and repeating this surah over and over again. The next day he went to the Prophet ﷺ and mentioned that to him. And it was as if the man thought, well, you know, he was belittling it, saying, why is he reciting this short surah, reciting it over and over again, or saying something like that? So the Prophet ﷺ said what could mean, I swear by the one whose soul is my, in whose hand is my soul, that لَتَعْدُلُ ثُلُثُ الْقُرْآنِ. It is equal to 1/3 of the Quran. So Surah Al-Ikhlaas is equal to 1/3 Quran. That hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. Okay? So it's equal to 1/3 of the Quran. A Meccan or Al-Madani. This is a Meccan surah or Al-Madani. Why did the author put it like that? A Meccan or Al-Madani?
Because some of them say Mecca.
Because Ibn Abbas said it was, let's say, Meccan, and Ibn Mas'ud said it was Madini, and then some of the scholars followed that one, and some of the scholars, so there's ikhtilaf about that. So should we be concerned too much about it? We say what they said. Some say it's Meccan, some say it's Medina. Okay? So here we have it came down in Mecca or Medina. There's ikhtilaf. Okay? So 112, its place to be. So its placement is the 112th surah, right? The answer for the mushrikeen. What does it mean here? The answer.
The question from the mushrik, where the surah, where mushrik, this Allah made of what?
No, they ask who is the Lord. Because it identifies, gives you a template for identification who God is, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. It makes clear who Allah is. The only one self-sufficient.
Now, these two were more correct. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, this surah represents Allah.
Okay, let me clarify. The mushrikun came to the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih al-Bukhari, and they said to him, and in the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, and they said to the Prophet ﷺ, the Jews say, Uzair ibn Allah, that Uzair is the son of Allah. And the Nasara, the Christians say, Isa ibn Allah, that Isa is the son of God also. And the mushrik, I mean the Majus, the Zoroastrians, worship, Zoroastrians, those are the people who worship the sun. They said they worship the sun and the moon. Okay, this is the Majus. And the mushrikun, they have their idols. Tell us about your God. Give us the lineage of your God. What you're gonna, you coming with this new God, what's the deal with him? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Qul, say, respond to them, Huwa Allahu ahad. And huwa, here at the beginning of the surah, huwa, the ulama say that this denotes that this is something that was already mentioned. Like when you say him or it, you're only talking about something that was previously referenced. You understand what I mean? I can't talk about him unless I already mentioned who him was. Unless you ask me, you say, let's say, for instance, someone says, where's your son? Ya Aba Tawba, where's your son Ayub? I say, he's at home. If I start off the sentence, he's at home, that word he represents something that we already know about. So by saying huwa at the beginning of the surah, it shows that this is a response, that this was the answer to the mushrikeen. And that's how the ulama describe it in Ahkam al-Qur'an, that this is the response to the mushrikeen when they came and they asked the Prophet ﷺ, give us the lineage of your God. Okay? So this right here gives you something of the tafsir of it, and we're going to go through the surah again right now. Could you get the board for me, please? Do I have any questions about this? At this point, you go ahead.
Yeah, to answer the question of the mushrikeen was to identify for them in no uncertain terms who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. That, this is what he is when he came. He is eternal, absolute, he does not beget, nor is he begotten. And it gives a description, a definite description and a template. What I was trying to say, by which to answer that question, this is who Allah is.
Well, the ulama go on to say that this is not the first time this happened to a prophet. You see, Fir'aun said to Musa, وَمَنْ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ, who is this Lord of the worlds? And Musa responded by saying, رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا. He says, he didn't go on and say anything but to describe Allah. Because we can only speak about Allah from what we know about, from the